Yes, we're back in Yorkshire, God's own country. The land of beautiful landscapes, unspoiled countryside, flat caps and whippets, and probably some of the maddest places you will ever see. This is part 2 of the 20 worst places in Yorkshire. Leeds, 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 Leeds. You get the idea. We're marching on together to number 10, Leeds. Leeds is by far the largest city in Yorkshire, overtaking York during the Industrial Revolution, and it's now one of the powerhouses of the north. With over 800,000 people packed into its 213 square mile urban area, Leeds has got everything. There's a lot to unpack here. So starting off here in this city centre, the centre is mostly very modern with a regeneration that is still ongoing and has been for about 25 years. It's surprisingly posh in places. It's very multicultural and vibrant, and with 5 universities it makes for quite a young population as well. This is Kirkgate Market, one of the largest indoor markets in Europe. And by the way, from a personal perspective, I've got to say Leeds scores points for being the home of the brewery Northern Monk. So back in the day, probably in the early Victorian period, these arcades wouldn't have been here. They would have been abattoirs and slums. Now it's very, very posh, as you can see. I mean, I can't afford anything in here, but it's nice to mooch around. It's nice to have a little, bit of window shopping. But it's not all Versace and Armani. Leeds has got just about every shop you could want, and it's good for eating and drinking as well. There's all kinds of swanky bars and restaurants, or just chippies and cafes and boozers. Everyone's catered for. There is still a fair bit of concrete, but most of the city centre has been redeveloped in recent years. Leeds has one particularly large railway station and then regional lines. And just south of the station, Granary Wharf area is very modern and sleek. It kind of reminds me of the downtown of like a North American city. But once you cross this canal heading south and you're out of the centre, it soon becomes a bit of a dark and oppressive 70s kind of world where, well, it's not really good for pedestrians, as you can see. You wouldn't want to walk there if you didn't have to. Leeds United are the only professional football side in Leeds. Throughout their 105-year history, they've won the league 5 times. Most recently in 1992, they've won the FA Cup once and the League Cup once. They've just won the Championship and will play in the Premier League in 2025-26 season. Scottish ex-captain Billy Bremner is probably the biggest legend the club has ever had. Headingley is home to Leeds Rhinos rugby league team. They're one of the top teams in the country. And the cricket ground by the same name is the home of Yorkshire Cricket Club, the most successful club in the country. So altogether you could say Leeds has got a pretty impressive sporting pedigree. The biggest Leeds United legend in my lifetime though is probably Lucas Radebe. The South African centre-back was signed from a team called Kaiser Chiefs, from whom the band took their name. Look at that, a barber and a therapist. I like it. Don't like that so much though. These are some typical streets in Armley, and there's St Bartholomew's Church. Armley is a typical working class area of Leeds. Kirkstall Abbey is a few miles from the city centre and it dates all the way back to the 12th century. Some interesting graffiti here which you can't help but read in a Leeds accent. I won't offend the people of Leeds by trying to imitate their accent. So we go back to the city centre, and Leeds, as you can see, has a few skyscrapers mixed in with the old buildings, and unfortunately a fair amount of crappy graffiti as well. Like most big cities, homelessness is a reality in Leeds. One of Leeds' twin towns is Dortmund, Germany, who have provided this sculpture that I think is a man with a keg of beer. The Leeds Art Gallery is housed in a pretty fine building. And the centrepiece of Leeds is the Town Hall, which was undergoing a refurb at the time of my visit. This is what it looks like inside. The old post office is now swanky bars, but the statues of James Watt and John Harrison still remain. This is the Art Deco Queen's Hotel next to the railway station. It's enormous with 232 rooms and 3 suites. One place I do really like in Leeds is the Corn Exchange. This was built in Victorian times for folk to, exchange corn, of course. It's now a shopping mall, and it's not your typical shopping mall. It's one that sells interesting and creative stuff in this ornate building. Here's what it would have looked like back in the day. If you ask me, everyone who visits Leeds should visit the Corn Exchange. Sadly, this eyesore is just around the corner, and as you can see, some of the buildings here in the city centre are crumbling. As well as this, there are some absolute nutters in Leeds.
Hey, look at these lot. So there's that. There's these lot down here.
Absolute lunatic. It's the dog I feel sorry for. Now, I've been to Leeds city centre a few times, and for whatever reason I always seem to encounter these types. Maybe it's just me, maybe I attract them, but I haven't been to Leeds' more salubrious areas yet. Not until this trip anyway. As you head north out of the city centre, past the Leeds Arena and the derelict Hume House, and the tree protection zone, where the trees receive no protection from the garbage flying about the place. Past the tower blocks of Little London. I told you Leeds isn't much fun for pedestrians. You then get to Chapeltown, where Nelson Mandela visited in 2001 and had the local community centre named after him. Chapeltown in the 70s and the 80s used to be notorious for gang-related crime and drug offences, culminating in riots in 1975, 1981 and 1987, mostly due to tensions between the Afro-Caribbean community and the police, as well as poverty, poor housing and mass unemployment. The area does seem a lot more chill these days. In fact, considering this was a late Saturday afternoon in summer, I was surprised at how quiet it was. Another place has taken Chapeltown's mantle now as the area for unrest and tensions with the police. On the other side of Potter Newton Park here is Hare Hills. Now, I had to be discreet with the camera here as I'd read all kinds of horror stories online. This area was in the news for all the wrong reasons in summer 2024. So social workers were trying to take 4 children from a Romani family into emergency foster care, and they faced resistance from the parents. The police were called, and soon the community completely overwhelmed the few police that were there, and they had to retreat as rioting broke out. It all started right here on Luxor Street. It then reached its peak later on about half a mile down the road from Luxor Street, where a bus was stopped and burnt to a cinder. The following day, the family of the 4 children declared a hunger strike, and 4 days later, the children were returned. The agitators in the riot were said to be from different ethnic groups, not just Romany, by the way. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. As I walked around, I didn't feel intimidated or unsafe. Obviously, I'm a 6'2" bloke, so I'm probably not the easiest target necessarily, but it didn't feel dangerous. It just felt kind of impoverished, I guess, and poor. The riot in 2001 was allegedly due to police being heavy-handed. That started off and pretty much took place all here in Banstead Park. I've come to a much nicer area now. This is Roundhay, and in Roundhay you will find Roundhay Park. This is a massive park with a big lake. I was enjoying being there on this summer's day. It's all very nice until I decided to read up about it, and I found out it was one of the Yorkshire Ripper Peter Sutcliffe's favourite places to find prostitutes to murder. Well, that's Leeds. It's a good city really, but there's just too many nutters for me. To me, it makes the Kaiser Chiefs lyrics make sense. Walking through town is quite scary, not very pretty, I tell thee. Let's move on. Number 9, as you can see, we're on the coast now, and can you guess what number 9 is by the beautiful beach? Well, number 9 is Redcar. Way up in the northeastern corner of Yorkshire, a medium-sized town of just over 37,000, just 7 miles east of Middlesbrough and just south of where the River Tees meets the North Sea. Redcar is a bit of a strange one because it is or has been part of Yorkshire, part of Teesside and part of Cleveland at some point. The town centre, as you can see, is having regeneration works going on the main pedestrianised areas, and there are a lot of boarded up shops. In 2015, the local steelworks was closed, causing a loss of thousands of jobs. The government have allocated some money towards levelling up Redcar, but residents seem kind of cynical from what I can tell online. Perhaps a metaphor for this could be this long tunnel I found. It's empty inside, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Where does it lead? To a bin. That's where it led. A bin full of rubbish. Redcar has 2 railway stations, Redcar East and Redcar Central, with trains going as far as Manchester. Redcar's famous for horse racing, the racecourse being open for over 150 years. According to a YouTube video I watched, this was supposed to be the rough part of Redcar, but it's nothing near as bad as other parts in Yorkshire and in Teesside. So usual stupid graffiti, bad roads, damaged car, boarded up windows, the usual stuff. I found some pretty strange sculptures in Redcar. And here's a Redcar in Yorkshire sign. On this quiet residential street, found a sound mirror, which was used back in World War II to detect enemy aircraft. Oh, and look at that. A red car in Redcar. Nah, the fox didn't find it funny either. Redcar has a lovely sandy beach which goes on for absolutely miles. Right, so we're heading back into town now, and this is the old Redcar Priory Club, Smokers Welcome. It's got a fantastic function room with a flyer from 2022. You can watch football from the 2015-2016 season, and here's a forthcoming event. Let's see what it is. It's a Pink Floyd tribute, 5th of March 2022. Won't want to miss that. So that's the Priory Club, and wow, this place looks like a strong gust of wind could take it down. This is directly opposite the St Peter's Church here. This building was probably half decent many years ago until it got abandoned and then turned into a car park. And oh look, there's that grumpy fox again. He hasn't had any rabbit for a while. And this shop used to be a travel agent. Redcar's got a nice low-key kind of seafront. The pier was demolished in 1980 after pretty much being allowed to rot. We're going to look at a lifeboat now, and no, not that one. And oh look, pretty clouds. Alright, so we're going to see here the Zetland, the oldest surviving lifeboat in the world and the pride of Redcar. Launched in 1802 and retired in 1864. It's said that Zetland saved over 500 souls during its years of service. It's housed now in a free museum, donations welcome of course, on the seafront. There are some nice art installations on the promenade as well. Although this one is perhaps a little bit disturbing. And what the hell is going on here? Oh, he's on a horse. I'll get it now. The hub is a business startup hub from the Levelling Up Fund, and tuned in is a community centre also from the Levelling Up Fund. Redcar has some small amusement arcades, nothing like, Bridlington or Scarborough. And the Redcar Beacon was voted the third ugliest building in Britain the year it was built. You can climb up to the top for some pretty sweet views of Redcar. The Regent Cinema, built in 1873, was originally a part of the pier, then later a theatre, then a cinema, then a dance hall, and then in 1965 it became a cinema again. Pretty nice building, I'm sure you'll agree. The buildings behind look kind of tired, however. The promenade is full of little art installations like this one called Left Luggage. Royston Vasey, better known by his stage name Roy Chubby Brown, spent many years in Redcar. I remember one of his jokes was, "I call my wife Thrush because she's an irritable Nice to see the joke got a road named after it. I went for a look around the back alleys of Redcar to see what the crack was and who was selling it. Redcar is an out-of-the-way place that does seem to have been forgotten about, and most of the places were looked after, but not this area, just south of the railway line. This is pretty depressing. Redcar is a small town with beautiful beaches and friendly people, but with some pockets of severe deprivation. I wish the people of the town well for the future. Number 8, Bradford. Once the world capital for wool production, more recently the curry capital of the UK, and this year the UK City of Culture. And it's also top of the list for many as being the worst or the most dangerous city in Britain. You hear a lot of bad things about Bradford, but what's it really like in 2025? Well, I arrived on a sunny summer Sunday. There were a lot of families out in Centenary Square and folk enjoying the sunny Wetherspoons beer garden, myself included. As much as I'd like to play you more brass bands does Bruno Mars, I have to stop it there or YouTube will demonetise the video. Alright, just another few seconds, should be alright. In the 19th century, Bradford was one of the richest cities in the country outside of London, and it's reflected in one of the most beautiful city centres in the UK, in my opinion, with this grand Victorian architecture. Of course, the good times couldn't last forever, and as Bradford was bringing in workers from around the world, industry started to decline, and decline, and decline. Bradford is a big city, home to over 500,000 people, so I won't go into what all the buildings are because we'll be here all day. But I will mention that they have city centre theatres, cinemas, shopping centres, bars, restaurants, and of course plenty of curry houses, all walking distance from the bus and the 2 railway stations. Of course, there's the obligatory statue of Queen Victoria, and I guess that must be the person who protects the statue just having a nap behind it. There's also the Science and Media Museum here and a retro ice rink. Of course, Bradford has had its share of urban decay. I've seen a lot of these old Prudential buildings in places like Oldham, Liverpool, London and other places, but this one stands out in Bradford as you don't see that many red brick buildings here. A lot of these grand old buildings are unoccupied, and a lot of the not so grand ones are in the same kind of state. Bradford has one football team, Bradford City FC, who play at Valley Parade. They're currently playing in League One, the third tier of English football, and playing a distinctive claret and amber kit. Bradford Bulls are historically one of the top rugby league teams in England, but are now playing in the second tier. They play across town in the Odsal Stadium. Sadly, as you can see, even the football stadium gets fly tipped. In 1985, a fire ripped through Valley Parade after a fan tried to extinguish a cigarette on the floor. It fell through the boards onto the litter below, ignited it and killed 56 fans. An odd feature of this stadium is the sponsorship of the main stand, or the family stand, sorry, by Morrison's, which makes it seem like you're going into a supermarket rather than a stadium. The Victorian Midland Mills here has been vacant since 2001. It lies derelict and there's obvious evidence of people sleeping rough and using drugs. It looks more like a prison now than a mill. I was heading to the bus station now to hop on a bus, obviously, out of the city centre to what I'd heard was the roughest estate in Bradford, Holme Wood. And they weren't joking when they said this place was rough. At one point, bus drivers got so sick of antisocial behaviour, they refused to go to the area. The main parade of shops looks absolutely knackered, and graffiti on the wall depicts the bus drivers' strike and the youngsters causing mayhem on their motorbikes. And if you weren't sure, the speech bubble, A up mush, is there to tell you that A, you're in Yorkshire, and B, you're on an estate populated by the travelling community. Despite this fella offering haircuts, tattoos and body piercing all under one roof, it wasn't enough to keep this business afloat. Horses roam the parks here. They're used either as pets or to help collect scrap metal or pull caravans. The council has been trying for well over 10 years to have them removed. This old church here is derelict, and it seems they didn't want us to know the name of this recreation ground. The fire here was still smouldering from the night before. You could smell it all over the estate. You could also smell the manure because it was everywhere. It seems that as well as the bus drivers, the Royal Mail isn't welcome either. This small park was full of garbage and a horse. Just across the road from there were the vintage muscle cars, which I'm sure were all taxed, MOT'd and insured. It seems people just dump their rubbish wherever they feel like it on the estate. There were no signs of homelessness in the derelict buildings, but presumably, it's a small estate, close-knit, the community looks out for each other, at least in that regard. The place is literally a dump. There aren't many facilities for people, but there is a small library and, amusingly, a motorbike riding training school. Homeward Bound is the clever title of the local pub, but somebody needs to tell them that 12 AM is midnight, not noon. These are the local top shops. I went back to this city via this underpass. See more evidence of urban decay en route? Well, I didn't see this sign in Centenary Square. This area is known as Little Germany, due to many merchants coming over from Germany in Bradford's heyday. Another architecturally stunning area with some fun street art, and of course, it wouldn't be Bradford if there weren't some derelict buildings. Waterstones in Bradford is a bit of a tourist attraction in its own right. There's around 100 mosques and 166 churches in Bradford, as well as 2 gurdwara, 1 synagogue and 1 Hindu temple. Around a quarter of the population are of South Asian descent. I was heading up to Manningham now, a predominantly Asian community and one of the more deprived areas of Bradford, where most of the 2001 Bradford riots took place. Lister Mills in Manningham was derelict for years, but is now being repurposed with apartments and offices, retaining most of the architectural features and the iconic chimney. I then finished my trip to Bradford in Lister Park. So that's Bradford. Yes, it has a very high crime rate for the UK, and yes, in some places it's fallen apart, but it's got a lot going for it, in my opinion. Number 7, Castleford, a medium-sized town of around 46,000 or so in the Wakefield district of West Yorkshire. The yellow derelict building here was my introduction to Castleford, and it didn't really improve much from there, to be honest. The Church of All Saints is next to more derelict buildings, and the town centre is mostly dull, functional 60s/70s architecture with boarded up shops one side and crap the other. Euro convenience stores, vape shops, casinos, fast food, phone repair, yada yada yada. It's a poor town, and once again, I'm beginning to sound like a broken record here. It's due to the closing down of local industries, and in Castleford's case, it's the collieries. According to the latest crime stats, Castleford is among the top 20 most dangerous medium-sized towns in the entire country. The town centre is run down and pretty depressing to walk around. Apparently, these are going to be luxury apartments in the town centre with a view of what? Anything but luxury. I went to the market to see if there was anything going on. Not a lot. Hardly bloody anything. However, if you want a Louis Vuitton mug for £7, here's the place to come. Castleford's pride and joy is its rugby league team, who, considering they're from a relatively small town, punch well above their weight in the Super League. The Tigers play in yellow and black, and their stadium is called The Jungle, although sadly due to sponsorship reasons it's now called the Mender Hose Jungle, which sounds far less intimidating. I went to check out the completely empty Castleford Market Hall. The Castleford project is a regeneration plan using £3 million of government money to revitalise the town centre and the riverside. That's all the information I could find online, and it was all quite vague. Anyway, it was pretty mad just being able to walk into this old market hall. Carlton Lane Shopping Centre is a bit livelier than the market hall, at least. I headed out of town past the world's tiniest bus and the brutal civic centre here. A bit of a juxtaposition with the NHS rainbow. I'd read a Reddit post about a place in Castleford called Airedale, which everybody says to avoid, so off we went, and it seemed absolutely fine. In fact, a lot nicer than the crumbling town centre. Still on the outskirts of Castleford, and almost certainly a contributor to the town centre's demise, is this large leisure park. It's got a nice shopping outlet, ski slope, bowling alley, state-of-the-art cinema, trampolining, adventure golf, all the usual sort of American fast food chains that people seem to like. People from all over West Yorkshire come here. It's called Escape, and it's just off the M62, and it even has its own railway station. How Castleford town centre is expected to compete with this, I don't know. At least the local college is nice and modern, although it's next to these grotty parks. Someone's even just chucked their telly by the pavement here. Fair play, there is nothing on telly these days. You're better off sticking to YouTube. The residential areas of Castleford are okay, and it looked pretty good from the riverside here as well. This bridge is presumably part of the regeneration. And it's pretty cool to see the old Castleford flour mill here as well. And there's one last thing to show you then. So this house next to Mark's Carpets, completely destroyed and empty after alleged noncery. Number 6 at Doncaster. Doncaster became a city back in 2022 as part of the Queen's Jubilee celebrations. It's the second largest settlement in South Yorkshire after Sheffield. Doncaster is well positioned pretty much in the middle of the country and has good transport links with its railway, bus stations and the ring road right next to each other. So it has to be said that it's not the most beautiful city centre in the world, and these heads on a rock coming up in a moment are like a horror movie. Creepy. The historical highlight in the centre is the Grade 1 listed Mansion House. Another shopping centre in the city centre is the Colonnades, but there's barely any shops to actually shop at. Just this lonely photo booth curtain flapping in the wind. There's a lot of concrete in Doncaster, or Donny as it's known colloquially. Ancient artwork in a failed attempt to brighten up the place. It's like going back in a time machine to 1972, but finding out there'd been a plague the year before that wiped out 99% of the population, and those that were left were running around feral. It was a sunny day, yet Donny still felt dark and foreboding. Finally, I found my way back to the 21st century in the Waterdale area. It was more modern here, but still like a ghost town. It was good to see that Donny Council had spunked a load of money on a building for themselves. This alleyway has a few stories from various people that have met famous singers like Mungo Jerry. I went to see Mungo Jerry playing at the Yarnborough Club, but the singer, Ray Dorsey, wouldn't give his autograph. My mate showed him a tattoo of him and he was so astonished he signed our shirts and brought us drinks. When Bryan Adams played at Keighley Stadium, I met him and ended up taking him shopping for some new underwear. I was waiting at the bus stop near Christchurch when I saw some scary looking guys in leather walking towards me. As they got closer, I recognised them. It was the Ramones, and Joey Ramone smiled and gave me a nod. You notice how these stories have no writers' names and are therefore not verifiable. Now, according to a recent study, Donny is the 13th most dangerous place in the whole of Britain. In 2024, 50% of a poll of 8,000 residents stated that they felt unsafe in Donny city centre. One thing I would say about Donny is there's loads of places to go for a nice out. Vibe, Rodeo's Country and Western, Manana Latin Bar, a Hawaiian bar, and the ubiquitous Irish pub, amongst others. Outside the centre there's a fair bit derelict as well. This is Elmfield Park. Doncaster Rovers play at the Eco Power Stadium. They're in League One, the third tier of English football. Their former chairman, Ken Richardson, trying to burn the club's former stadium, Bellevue, to the ground in a botched insurance job. He was jailed for his crime. Near the ground is the imaginatively named Lakeside Lake, a haven of tranquility, or at least the Swans thought so. There's also a beach here in Doncaster, would you believe it? There's a retail park nearby serving the usual rubbish, and then there's a Dome Leisure Centre and an aircraft museum, all in the same vicinity. Back in the city centre then, and more derelict stuff, more pubs, a bit more traditional here. I then headed to the market. Now, Doncaster has been a market town since the Middle Ages, but it's looking very quiet here now. The most activity was these guys having a chat whilst thinking about cleaning up the broken glass on the floor. This is the indoor market then. It's a bit on the smelly side, but that's due to the produce that's on offer. And there were some stalls outside as well. The Corn Exchange is probably the grandest building in Donny, an ornate and historic building. Now, I always used to think that you had to have a cathedral to be a city, but Donny doesn't have one. It has this, the Church of St George, also known as Doncaster Minster. Not really a place of quiet contemplation with its location right next to the ring road. There's also this Roman fort in Doncaster, complete with beer bottles and other rubbish. And that then is Doncaster. Not my favourite place, I'll be honest with you. Number 5 is Keighley, part of the borough of Bradford, but a town in its own right of around 57,000. Keighley is just 2 miles from Haworth and Bronte country. But Keighley is more depressing lows than Wuthering Heights. A town mostly demolished and rebuilt in the 60s, most of the architecture is the functional style of that era. There are some Victorian buildings remaining, mostly either abandoned or with garish facades, as you'll see shortly in this video. An old textile mill town, Keighley has a high crime rate and a lot of issues with fly tipping and litter, as you'll also see later in this video. The shopping centre is dull and uninspiring in that soul-sucking 70s style, and although there were a few nice stalls in the market, there were only a few. And what is it with these wolf t-shirts these days? Do people think these look good? Walking around the town centre here under the leaden skies is a bit like being in a zombie apocalypse movie. Here on Church Street it's a bit better. Timothy Taylor's brewery is based in Keighley, and if you're going to pick a name for a hardware shop, Cobley and Cockshot is a pretty damn good name. Here are some examples of the Victorian buildings with garish facades that I was talking about. If we head around to the back streets, they're, well, not really any better to be honest. Now, I don't know if this is the most recent sign for this shop, but the sign saying ex-rental and catalogue return TV and VHS repair gives an indication of how long this shop has been empty. Booze and vape shop across the road, going strong of course. This is Keighley's amateur politician message board. The bus station here is small and statistically quite dangerous. The cenotaph in town actually seems to be looked after with the gardens as well. And the massive Wetherspoons seems to be quite well looked after and quite well patroned as well. There's the Picture House as well, which seems quite nice and shows films at very reasonable prices. And tucked away in the back streets, you've got the Playhouse Theatre. So headed out of town, around the traditional back streets and found this abandoned mill. And we're heading up towards Devonshire Park, where it seems that setting fire to the benches and the signs was quite popular. and dumping your no longer needed appliances was possible just outside the park. The whole front garden on the end of this terrace was reduced to rubble. Cliff Castle was the best part of Keighley. Not an actual castle, it's a neo-Gothic Victorian home with beautiful gardens and nothing burnt and no litter. Keighley has a small cricket club, and next door to that we've got the Keighley Cougars. I'm sorry to report this is a rugby league team and not horny local MILFs. Their stadium looks quite nice until you realise that I had to climb on a fly-tipped refrigerator to get the shot of it. I'm sure Captain Sir Tom Moore would have appreciated being associated with the Cougars. Nobody would want to be associated with this, however. Victoria Park was in a disgusting state. I remember reading a quote once in Guatemala: "Solo los parásitos contaminan su terreno." Only parasites contaminate their land. And parasites is a perfect term for people who leave their surroundings like this. The local mosque is much better looked after, as is Keighley College, and next door to that is a railway station with a heritage railway which runs towards Bronte country. The railway station is set up nicely in this vintage style, complete with the vintage Victorian vape shop. The Victoria building on Cavendish Street, however, not doing quite so well. In fact, most of Cavendish Street wasn't doing too well. Local Conservative MP Robbie Moore had this to say about the street. Keighley desperately needs a vibrant town centre, so I'll work with businesses to bring empty shops back into use on Cavendish Street and North Street. I will campaign for new facilities at the Airedale Shopping Centre and throughout Keighley, like a new cinema, a thriving market, quality restaurants and sports facilities. That means more choice for shoppers and a better use of our town centre." Unquote. Time will tell as to whether he delivers on that. One place I wish had been open was a Yorkshire tapas restaurant. I wondered what they might serve. Chorizo in whole, mushy peas bravas, Spanish omelette and gravy, steak and kidney paella. Who knows? UK's hardest farm was way back in 2016. That's a shame because it would have been fun to see, especially if we could enter Jeremy Clarkson. The Royal Arcade was the best indoor part of central Keighley. Although it is small, you could see the shopkeepers have made a real effort. I especially like the newspaper cuttings here of major events like the sinking of the Titanic, the assassination of JFK, Man on the Moon and 6 giant fuchsias for $7.95. Keighley does have some fairly well hidden and nice old streets too. It's a bit of an energy sucking place, but while there's no Yorkshire tapas, you can at least get some very cheap meals. Number 4, and we're back in South Yorkshire, it's Mexborough. Now, Mexborough was a late addition recommended to me by a local who said I wouldn't find anywhere worse in Yorkshire. He was almost right. Not sure I even need to say this, but Mexborough declined hugely in the 1980s after the closing down of the local pits. Now it just feels like the locals have been left to fend for themselves. About 16,000 people live here and it's very close to Doncaster, but while Donny has been invested in and given city status, Mexborough feels like it's stuck in the 1980s. The majority of the shops are boarded up, and where else would you see a barber's advertising women's haircuts for £10.99? Yes, Mexborough. So Mexborough is economically depressed. I don't know whether the high street being empty is due to the proximity to Sheffield and Doncaster, or it's just that nobody's got any money. Most of the boozers are shut down. The odd one is open. and the odd other one looks like this. A few years ago, a 17-year-old shot a 20-year-old in Mexborough, killing them instantly. Reports of gangs and drugs here are more consistent with what you'd expect from a big city than a small town. I headed around the back streets, which didn't take long in this small place, and stumbled across this derelict pub which pretty much symbolises Mexborough. There are a fair few famous names from the town, most famous of all probably the actor with the booming voice, Brian Blessed. Schofield Street is meant to be where most of the nefarious activity goes down. It seemed pretty quiet, but looked like the kind of place where it could get lively. Speaking of lively, there was quite a bit of noise coming from the Falcon pub, probably the only pub that was open. The food options in Mexborough are fast food or no food. I feel bad for the people in this town. Old photos of the town from before the pit closures show it to be a happy, vibrant place. Now, it seems that people are merely existing. Number 3, and it's somewhere I'd never heard of until researching this list. Number 3 is Ravensthorpe. And this was my introduction to the place. Lovely, huh?
Is it them that don't come and empty things? They set up a fire, they leave all rubbish everywhere, bottles and everything. Somebody's fault.
I'll see what I'll do with my boss.
Right. But the man had got it on his list.
Yeah,
Oh, we're cleaning near Doncaster Road.
yeah.
I says, why don't you come and empty the bin in Tannow Street? I don't think it's our job.
Yeah.
The road sweeper said it ain't his job.
No.
So somebody's slacking up here.
Yeah. I'll have a word with my boss anyway.
I mean,
thank you.
I'm 81 and I'm fed up of it all. He said she was if the shithole down here. They've just forgotten Ravensthorpe. They dumped everybody in it from all different nationalities. Is it locked then, you said that?
Well, there's a lot on it.
That was a local resident quite rightly complaining to a council worker who I'd watched try to get away for quite some time. She's complaining about obviously the fly tip in there and the local bin that wasn't being emptied, and also the kids coming in and setting on fire the rubbish. So Ravensthorpe then is a suburb of Dewsbury pretty much, a former textile town. It's still quite industrial. I tried to find out the population of the town, and it seems that the place is so uncared about that nobody has bothered to carry out a census. The whole town is strewn with garbage, apart from this one small retail park. It's all convenience stores. And the Greenwood Centre, which is a library, community centre, children's centre, amongst other things, and with a health centre next door to it, has this park outside where groups of men were sat around drinking and chucking their empty cans on the floor, despite there being plenty of bins to choose from. There were a few locals at least that were trying to make the place look nicer. I feel like they're fighting a losing battle though, unfortunately. The polluted River Calder runs out the back of Ravensthorpe. Please do not obstruct this gate. I think you could say that's fairly well obstructed. Ravensthorpe is like the land that time forgot, and just a short train ride, one stop away, it gets even worse. Number 2, Dewsbury. Dewsbury is about halfway between Huddersfield and Wakefield, and I couldn't quite believe what Dewsbury was like. It took me by surprise. There are places like Bradford that have gone downhill but still have places like Centenary Square and the Victorian architecture. Huddersfield has a university, Wakefield has a regeneration going on, but Dewsbury has none of that. These statues depict Dewsbury's rugby and wall heritage, and blimey, this rugby player didn't skip leg day, did he? The lady in the statue is what's known in the textile industry as a ripper, working with rags while others collected the riches. The shopping arcade is quiet, but as you'll see shortly, it's the market that's really died on its arse. The local casino has adverts in Eastern European languages, which isn't uncommon, but German with an Austrian flag, that's a new one on me. At one point these buildings would have housed hard-working, honest folk, and now they're just decaying before us. Even McDonald's and Wetherspoons packed up and left Dewsbury. The latter, Wetherspoons, was due to a car crashing into its front window, the timepiece. Right, on to Dewsbury Market then, and it's tremendously sad. Mostly everything's gone. What is left is DVDs and just junks, stuff that people haven't needed for like 15 years. Here's how it would have looked in happier time. Oh, wait, let me get a picture. Right, this is how Dewsbury used to look, and yeah, buzzing, and now it's just crap. Apparently there's a Dewsbury blueprint, a plan to improve things. I'll believe it when I see it, you have to pardon my cynicism there. Small cafe, Asian clothes shop and a Turkish barber shop there remain. Turkish barbers like cockroaches. If there's nuclear blast, you can guarantee there'll be one amongst the rubble offering fades and hot towels for 15 quid. This bloke here is having a can of beer. It's only 10 AM, but sod it, he might as well. The blueprint then is to make Dewsbury a connected town, a living town, a heritage town, a business town. Oh, sod this, I'm going off for a beer with matey boy. The Dewsbury Town Hall is pretty nice. Whatever that is, isn't. There's 6 closed shops here on the bounce. Dewsbury has a free town bus, and with nothing better to do, I hopped on it. We went past the town hall, a little retail park, and then arrived at the bus station where everyone else got off, so I decided I'd best get off too. I went back into town and I was heading towards the Princess of Wales shopping precinct, opening in 1984 and hasn't been updated since. Now, I'm not sure what's happening with these statues, but I'm going to be tactful and say that he's performing the Heimlich manoeuvre on her. The police are kept busy, the crime rates in Dewsbury are pretty high. I headed out of town for some peace and quiet at Crowness Park, which was actually half decent. Dewsbury Moor was supposed to be the most deprived part of Dewsbury, but it's far nicer than town centre, and far, far nicer than number 1 on this list. Number 1 is Rotherham. So somewhere always has to be number 1, and sadly, it's Rotherham. So I started out in the Parkgate shopping centre, and by the looks of things, someone's gone in and bought a shoe and Sports Direct and chucked the old one away. Rotherham's an industrial town sitting on the rivers Rother and Don. It's only 6 miles away from Sheffield, but there's a world of difference. My first port of call would be eastwards, and on the way, opposite the leisure centre, it was garbage galore. It also lined the pavement outside what otherwise looked like a half-decent facility. Crap all over the place. Right, we're now in Eastwood. In July 2025, the local council have had to put in place a public spaces protection order to tackle the litter and the vermin that the litter attracts, like rats, to go alongside the current PSPO for restrictions on public drinking, abusive language and behaviour which could cause alarm or distress. Residents argue that none of this is policed anyway. According to the council, they are there 6 days a week cleaning up rubbish, and local residents are even taking fly tip stuff to the tip themselves. Rotherham is traditionally a market town, although the Meadow Hall shopping centre on the outskirts of town must be taking a lot of the business away. Rotherham has a population of around 110,000. There's one theatre, the Rotherham Civic, and a cinema called Arc Cinema. At the top of a hill lies Clifton Park with a large cenotaph, a bandstand and a small museum. These are some typical terrace streets of Rotherham. Sadly, the litter wasn't just confined to Eastwood. To show you that I'm not cherry picking, this is just the rubbish lined up on the street. Here in Boston Park lies Boston Castle, and some nice views across the town and beyond. Well, there probably would have been if it wasn't such a gloomy day. Somebody here clearly likes their Omega cider. And just to make the place even greyer, this sofa company has decided to make their building super duper grey. Rotherham United, who play in League One, the third tier of English football, used to play at Millmoor until 2012. It's pretty tired, the stadium, after being abandoned for 15 years. It's now used by Doncaster Bell's ladies team. The men now play in the modern New York district at the New York Stadium. At first I thought the name was a gimmick, but the stadium is named after the street, New York Way, which was given that name because a local company made fire hydrants for New York City. There's an extremely derelict couple of buildings next to the stadium. It seems that derelict buildings are a fact of life in Rotherham. Oh, and for some reason, pink post offices. Now, sadly, it's come to the moment I've been dreading. It's unavoidable, though, if I'm making an honest appraisal about the town. And that, of course, is what Rotherham is perhaps most known for, is the grooming gang scandal. So for around 25 plus years, child sex exploitation rings, aka grooming gangs, affected the lives of around 1,400 young girls, usually vulnerable and living in care. The perpetrators were usually men of British Pakistani origin, but included some white men and even some women. The abuse was dealt with incredibly ineptly by South Yorkshire Police, Rotherham Council and other authorities. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but as I researched this for the video, I couldn't believe what I was reading. The scandal has ripped apart the community, and the legacy of it will last a long, long time. The reputation of the town is severely damaged. Communities are segregated. I don't know if it was from the horror of what I'd been reading, but I felt a genuine, lingering sense of dread as I walked around the town. Rotherham has been named the Children's Capital of Culture for 2025, whatever that means. I looked this up in the media, and in there it's caused outrage, like the council were taking a mick. The Mayor of Rotherham, Rukhsana Ismail, has a lot of work to do to repair this community. So I do apologise, folks, that's been a very difficult video for me to make, and if it's depressed you, I am sorry. The world can be a cruel place, which is why we as communities need to care for each other, we need to look after each other, and we need to speak out for one another. Thank you as always for watching.